So you mentioned a few times under eating. Clearly, you really had no idea how to eat. I work
Yeah.
with a lot of endurance athletes. And as you might know, like endurance athletes can underfuel a lot. So I see it a lot. And then even as a population, like women in general, just tend to have a hard time eating a lot. So I bring it up a lot of something I'm really passionate about because everybody's really aware of the issues with overeating, but not a lot of
Yeah.
people are aware of the issues with undereating. So could you maybe speak to that? I mean, you even mentioned like you were at a high risk for a heart attack, which most people wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, well, it's kind of either end of the spectrum you go, whether it's excessively overeating or, like in my case, barely eating at all. You're straining your body, like every single aspect of your body to its basically its edge. And, you know, like for me, I was at that really low weight. So it's basically you're expecting your body to run and run properly on almost no fuel. And it's the way I look at it is, and again, I can speak to that really under eating population just because that's what happened to me. But the way I look at it is if you think of a car, like think of a really nice car. I'm not like a car expert, so I'm just gonna think of the first car that comes to mind, like a Jaguar. They're pretty fancy, right? You're not gonna put the cheapest fuel in that car and expect it to run properly, but you're also not going to let it run on fumes because you know that it's, again, not going to run properly. Obviously, our bodies are more important than cars, but it's the same concept. Like, if you're not giving your body fuel, you can't expect it to run properly, and then especially, like, if you're not even getting that baseline nutrition, everything's going to essentially go haywire, and yeah, you're, as I said, straining every part of your body to the point where you could be at a high risk for a heart attack or a stroke or things like that, and when you're told that as an 18-year-old, that's terrifying because you're like, "What are you talking about?" I had never heard of someone who was so thin having a heart attack. But my doctor said, especially as you mentioned, in women who are under eating or for whatever reason, if it's because they're not fueling their bodies, if they're endurance athletes, like that is such a real risk that no one talks about. And yeah, especially as a young girl, it's like, what? I had no idea. But as soon as I was told that, I started to really actually notice how sick I was and how unhealthy I was. But it kind of took, you know, actually being told, "Hey, this could kill you." This isn't like a joking matter anymore, but not that it ever was. But yeah, that it is pretty scary, but it's essentially just stretching your body to the absolute limit. And if you do that day in and day out, there is going to be a breaking point.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm actually studying for the NSCA's strength and conditioning specialist. And even in that textbook, they bring it up multiple times about women specifically from a coaching perspective being mindful of your athletes. Like, hey, these are signs to watch for of under eating. Like I knew it was an issue. And obviously with people I work with, it comes up a lot. But it was interesting to see in like an official textbook, like 3 or 4 times it's brought it up. So
Yeah, it's a big deal.
yeah, it is. It is. And a lot of the stuff you consider to be normal, at least me growing up as an athlete, a lot of the symptoms of undereating, like we just thought was normal because we were endurance athletes and we were high
Yeah.
schoolers. So we were already burning a lot of calories, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit, I don't know, I almost feel like overeating is so talked about, and that's, like, I feel like the focus of the health industry, and again, like, I've never really been in that situation, so it's harder for me to, I guess, speak on that ground, but for the undereating, it's actually more frequent than people, I think, realize, and like you said, I almost feel like it's impossible for endurance athletes to not undereat, just because you're burning so much fuel, and then you know, like, I've done half marathons and marathons. I don't know how far your endurance athletes usually run, but some of them are probably like, "Oh, half marathon, that's nothing." I do that this every day. But I feel like that is such a task for your body to do alone, and then, depending the length of the runs and all of the workouts and things, you basically don't have energy to do anything else for the rest of the day, much less, go and cook a meal or, even sometimes I know, like, when I was training for my marathon, I was like, "I'm just too tired to even eat right now. Like, I just wanna sleep. I just wanna rest," things like that, and yeah, after you ask your body to run these crazy amounts of miles, and then you're basically going, "Okay, well, you did that, but, you're not getting fuel to replenish that for the next one or the next one after that," and that's why I think it's really hard for endurance athletes to not undereat.
Yeah, I think obviously overeating is a big issue in the US just statistically. But like you said, it doesn't really get the light kind of gets all put on them and not on the undereating. And then I think social media too, especially all these, kind of very high driven athletes, right? All they see online is people doing more than them. So they can even downplay, like, oh, yeah, I ran a half marathon. Like, that isn't even that much. Like,
Yep.
why do I need to eat this many calories? That isn't that much. I just watched this YouTube video. This guy ran 100 miles, you know. But then, I've had some athletes come to me that are even marathon runners and they're like, hey, I feel horrible. I have no energy. And I look at how much they're eating and they're eating like 1,400 calories a day, 1,500 calories a day. And it's like,
Well,
it's so difficult because it's so emotional too, you know?
yeah. Well, and especially with endurance races, I when I did so I've only run 1 marathon, and I struggled with that because I definitely overtrained, even though everyone was like, "Don't do this." I'm like, "Whatever, it's fine. It'll probably help me." It didn't, but I know the last 6 miles of that marathon, it wasn't necessarily, I was struggling with my body, it was the mental factor, and it's like, you hit that wall and you're like, "Why am I doing this? What am I gaining out of this?" But it is such a mental, toll on our body as much as it is physical, and that's when having proper nutrition and fuel really come in handy, and while it might seem like you're overeating and I know, like, I went through a period where I was specifically over counting the calories that I was consuming to avoid overeating. This was before I was told, like, "You're really sick, you need to work on this." But I was like, yeah, I was over counting calories because I'm like, "Well, I don't want to get into the point where I'm overeating and gaining so much weight." So and I think that is also something that a lot of women do, that it's like, we're just gonna steer on the side of caution and, you know, count extra for whatever it is we're eating. But yeah, the food and the fuel that you get can I was listening to a lecture the other day. This nutritionist was basically saying the fuel that you eat can help you feel really good, power you through every activity that you want to do, or it can make you feel stressed, anxious, and really dumb. Like, but at the end of the day, it's your choice what kind of fuel you're giving your body.
I love that. I, uh
Yeah.
I work with a lot of athletes, but I have a lot of like general population people come to that want to lose some weight. And it's very difficult because they've got these varied histories with different programs, all the named programs out there that sell stuff. And I really love the same kind of mindset. I tell them like, I'll worry about the weight loss. Like you just focus on, hey, I'm going to eat this to fuel my body to make myself stronger,
Yeah.
healthier. And we kind of go through an informational, like, this is what's happening. You're going to be healthier, live a longer, healthier life, be able to basically live a fuller life and not feel so restricted like, a lot of
Yeah.
diets make you feel.